Hey, Dalvin Cook is in the Cowboys practice squad. We'll talk about it. We'll talk about who is in it. But more importantly, perhaps, we'll talk about who is not in it because there's an elephant in the room. Two absent players from the Cowboys practice squad. Let's get to it. Here we go. What is up, everyone, and welcome into A to Z Sports Dallas Primetime. I'm your host, Mauricio Rodriguez, streaming with you live every Sunday and Thursday night at 8 p.m. Central, and catching up with you Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday with quick-hitting videos such as this one. Last night, we reacted to the initial Cowboys 53-man roster. Today, we'll be talking more about the practice squad because we already know who's going to be in it. There's still a couple of open spots in there. We'll talk about that later. But we also know Dalvin Cook is going to be on that practice squad. That's a significant update since we last talked to each other on Tuesday night when we talked about how Dalvin Cook, his visit came to an end, didn't have a deal with the Cowboys, and I laid out why I thought that meant Dalvin Cook was not going to be a Cowboy in 2024. We got that wrong, kind of, because he's not going to be on the 53. He's instead going to be on the practice squad. We'll talk about what that means. But first, I do want to say Clarence Hill from DLLS Sports did report that the Cowboys always wanted Dalvin in the practice squad. That's why Dalvin Cook kind of left and maybe was going to visit with the Colts. I don't think that ended up happening. And if it didn't, it might have been because Dalvin Cook realized that the Colts wanted him for the same thing, maybe, for the practice squad. But that's just a speculation on my end. Maybe we'll find out more later. But the Cowboys wanted Dalvin Cook in the practice squad. Maybe he was going to look at his options. Maybe this was his best option. He's now going to stay in Dallas. And the question now becomes, though, for him, how early is he going to be involved and how much he is going to be involved? Because there's two potential avenues that the Cowboys could be taking with Dalvin Cook. Avenue number one, and I'm going to argue perhaps the most likely avenue, is that the Cowboys do want Cook involved, but they want to ramp him up. They want to get him in game day shape, and they want to see him in practice first before making any rash decisions. Now, if that is the case, Dalvin Cook can be elevated to up to 3 games to the game day roster without having to sign to the 53. What does that mean? He could be elevated 3 times, playing 3 regular season games before the Cowboys have to make any decisions as to who they cut and potentially who they cut at running back, right? We'll get more into that and what this means for Deuce Vaughn specifically in a little bit. I think that's question number one. How much is he going to be involved? And then how early is he going to be involved? Do they expect Dalvin Cook to be ready to go by week 1, despite no training camp with any other team, despite no OTAs, mini camp, just based off of what they saw when they hosted him for a visit by maybe what they have seen in video from Dalvin Cook? Because we've seen Dalvin Cook just throwing that medicine ball into the wall, looking all ripped and stuff. But that doesn't necessarily tell you if Dalvin Cook is in game day shape. So maybe the Cowboys want to find that out. Here's the thing, and we talked about this when we first learned that the Cowboys were looking at Dalvin Cook as a potential signing. I'm not sure how he fits into this whole thing. The Cowboys right now have 4 running backs on their 53. That is Rico Dowdle, Ezekiel Elliott. Those 2 guys are the top dogs of the running back committee. Whether you like it or not, the Cowboys have made that clear to us. Zeke didn't play in the preseason game. Rico Dowdle played 1 drive in the preseason opener. That was it for his August. So the Cowboys are at a point where they're like, yep, those 2 are our guys. We don't even have to look at them in exhibition games. After them, you've got Hunter Lipke. He is not a part of this discussion, honestly, because he's a fullback, somewhat of a special teams ace. He is competing with no one. Then you got Deuce Vaughn. Deuce Vaughn, seemingly so, earned a spot on the roster because of his playmaking ability. And let's be honest, he brings something to the table that neither Rico nor Zeke do. Those yards after contact, those ukes, those cuts, those spins, that shiftiness is something that Rico and Zeke do not have right now. Doesn't provide much special teams value, but does fill a very important role as a kickoff returner next to Kevontae Turpin, potentially. We don't know what the Cowboys' exact plan is right there. But Deuce Vaughn could enter any game day and have a very specific role to himself. He could go in there and do some stuff that Rico and Zeke cannot do. And let's stick with the offensive side of things. The Cowboys have used him a lot in training camp in empty formations where they put him out as a receiver, and they even have him chipping and helping out in pass pro, and he hasn't looked bad at all when he does that, right? He's not going to send a lot of defenders into the ground, but he will do enough to help out an offensive tackle, and sometimes he will just go flying out there and falling to the ground after missing. But Deuce Vaughn was pretty decent in what he was asked to do in pass pro this preseason. Plus the kickoff return duties, he has a role that the others do not fill, right? We can agree to that. If you enter Dalvin Cook to the conversation, though, and let's say for a minute they activate him for week 1, what exactly does he do that the others don't do? And who do you leave inactive? Because if Dalvin Cook enters the conversation week 1, he's not going to be on special teams. He's not going to be returning kicks. He's going to be doing basically what Ezekiel Elliott is going to be doing. He's going to be running the rock. He's going to maybe not going to be very explosive because at least in 2023, he was not that. 3.2 yards per attempt, 14th lowest out of 59 running backs with the same amount of carries as himself in explosive play rate, and worst among that group in EPA per attempt. So Dalvin Cook was bad. At least his numbers were bad. And I think you look at the game film and you don't necessarily see the burst that made him Dalvin Cook early on in his career, that made him a running back that between 2017 and 2022 was averaging 4.7 yards per attempt. That running back does not show up in the stat sheet. I kind of argue he does not show up in the film either. You can see some sparks here and there, but I think he's far from being that guy in 2024. So you're bringing Dalvin Cook to the game. You're bringing Ezekiel Elliott to the game. You're bringing Rico Dowdle to the game. Hunter Lipke. Are you really going to have 5 running backs active on game day? Are you really going to find somewhere else to put your inactive players? Because I'm going to tell you something, man. Right now, a game is played today. These are my inactives. Without counting Dalvin Cook, I'm not elevating anybody in this hypothetical. I got to get 5 inactive players. Trey Lance, Brevin Spanford, so my 4th tight end. One of the offensive linemen would be inactive right now. I'm just going to guess Matt Waletzko, because Azim Richards has the position flex. Buddy Johnson, my 5th linebacker, because I think even though he could be a special teams ace, I already got Maurice Leofau working out there, and Andrew Booth Jr. Those would be my 5 cornerback. That's a cornerback. Those would be my 5 inactives right now. And I'm still covered on special teams because I've got Easy Mukwamu, I've got CJ Goodwin, I've got Juan J. Thomas, Hunter Lipke, and Tyrese Wett. All of these guys played a lot last year in special teams, except for CJ Goodwin, but now he's back from injury. So I just don't see you adding a running back to the discussion, and then what? You have 5 backs active on game day, and I got to find another inactive player at another position, likely a defensive one. I don't know how that works roster-wise. There could also be a scenario where the Cowboys are just looking at Dalvin Cook and they are aware that there is not a market for him. And maybe they're like, yeah, man, I would just much rather have you on the practice squad, and maybe I use you down the road if I need to. But that would be a surprise to me. I kind of think they want to use him, even if I don't fully agree with it because of what it means for Deuce Vaughn. But we'll turn the page right now, and we're going to stop talking about running backs for a while here. Let's look at the Cowboys practice squad right now, what it looks like, and some of the big takeaways on my end. Let me just zoom this in so you have a better look of what things are looking at. You can read my takeaways for this practice squad over at ADZSports.com/Dallas. But for now, though, let's just look at them right now on the screen. Dalvin Cook, it's reported. It's not official yet, at least not per the team. You've got Carl Lawson back on the practice squad, so that is some clarity there at defensive end. We thought maybe the Cowboys had gotten ready to move on from Lawson. People talked about effort, a whole bunch of things, but it looks like the Cowboys always wanted Carl Lawson, so there's that, just some roster maneuvers there. Linebacker Brock Mogensen, wide receiver Jalen Cropper, who was in the running for a roster spot because of a very strong training camp. Josh Ball, who was one of the biggest surprises on cutdown day, comes back to the practice squad. Then some depth, Princeton fan, Josh Butler, Keeman Hall, one of the guys that I thought would be on the 53. Malik Davis at running back, Kelvin Harmon, you've got Darius Harris, Imani Johnson, Dakota Chepley, Nick Vigil, Denzel Daxon. I'm not going to dive very deep into all of these names. Denzel Daxon, though, is an international player. So if you get to 17 players, it's going to be because of Daxon, because he doesn't count towards the 16-man player limit. But I will say this. Two names that are not on the list become the elephant in the room for me. And I'm talking about Julius Wood, and I am talking about Justin Rogers. Let's start with Wood. Cowboys rolled the dice, man. They waived the undrafted rookie who was a strong preseason standout, had some moments in coverage, had some interceptions, was also laying the wood just everywhere around the NFL field, man. He was a menace for opposing players, hitting that hit stick pretty consistently and looking like a dog. And now the Cowboys waive him just like they did Isaiah Land last year, a defensive end, undrafted rookie. And I think they will regret it. The Tennessee Titans put in a claim for him, so he's headed to Tennessee. They don't have as strong of a safety room over there. But I think of Isaiah Land because you remember the details of that. Isaiah Land was waived by the Cowboys despite a very strong training camp because they had too many defensive ends anyways. They had Micah, they had D-Law, Armstrong, Fowler, Sam Williams. He would have been the sixth guy at best. So it was a tough call for Dallas. Anyways, fast forward to 2024, Fowler is out, Armstrong is out, Sam Williams is injured, and I can guarantee you the Cowboys wish they still had Land on the roster. That might be the case for Wood in a year just because he looked very legit. Cowboys will see Marquise Bell and Juan J. Thomas hit free agency in 2025, so that depth is going to take a significant hit. That's maybe something you shouldn't be worrying about right now, but I just think Julius Wood will come up in similar conversations to Isaiah Land conversations a year from now. So he was a part of the elephant in the room. And then you got Justin Rogers, who I want to hear more about what happened here because it was intriguing. Justin Rogers was picked by Dallas in the 7th round of this year's NFL draft. Waived, clears waivers. He clears waivers. Oh, I'm sorry, man. My voice cracked even. I'm so surprised that it cracked. And then doesn't sign with the Cowboys practice squad. He signs with the Cincinnati Bengals. Now, I have not seen any reports on the details out of this. I don't think anyone has reported on it. But I'm wondering what happened there. Was it that Justin Rogers was like, nah, man, I'm heading to Cincinnati. Thank you for everything. And I'll try to fight for a roster spot over there. I have a better chance. Or was it more along the lines of something went down that the Cowboys didn't like with Justin Rogers, and that's why he's not on the team? Because I don't think it had to do with preseason play. I don't think Justin Rogers was bad enough to change the minds of the Cowboys who drafted him, and a few months later, they don't even want him in the squad. I don't think that makes a lot of sense. So maybe something happened, or maybe more likely, I would dare say, Justin Rogers wanted another place to be in. He wanted to be in Cincy. So that might be it, honestly. But anyways, ladies and gentlemen, thanks so much for tuning into the show. That is our reaction to the Cowboys practice squad. I hope that you guys have a fantastic Wednesday. And I'll see you tomorrow night on the live show, 8 p.m. Tune in. Bye-bye.